The Urantia Book teaches us that cosmic truths are universal, but the meanings associated with such truths are constantly developing from age to age. If such a statement were to be untrue, then there would be no need for future manifestations of a perfected God, such as God the Supreme, God the Ultimate, and God the Absolute that are currently developing as we speak. God is eternal, meaning there is neither a beginning nor end to the many creations that came before us. With respect to half-truths here, our universe is taught that God the Father brought forth the eternal Son, and both the Father and Son created the infinite Spirit back in eternity ago, despite having no clear etiology prior to recorded time. Despite not having a physical gender like ours, the paternal and maternal characteristics of the Father and Son are described in 8:1.2 when discussing the infinite Spirit's placement in the Trinity.
The first act of the infinite Spirit is the inspection and recognition of his divine parents, the Father, Father, and the Mother, Son. He, the Spirit, unqualifiedly identifies both of them. He is fully cognizant of their separate personalities and infinite attributes as well as of their combined nature and united function.
When it came to Christ Michael's interactions with his apostles, there is no mistake that our Creator Son was a direct descendant of our more maternal eternal Son. Given his motherly love and caring, he gave both to the masses and his own disciples. When I first learned about the Trinity in the Urantia text, I falsely believed that the infinite Spirit was the source mother figure of the group, since most seraphim are believed to have a predisposition of the feminine characteristics from the universe mother spirit. Taking this premise a step further, we learn in 38:4.3 that,
though not male and female as are the material sons and the mortal races, seraphim are negative and positive. In the majority of assignments, it requires two angels to accomplish the task. They are exceedingly personal and truly affectionate.
Consequently, if you have a guardian seraphim assigned to you, then it's not just one typically assigned to you, but both of them balancing the other, much like the sacred masculine and feminine. The masculine and feminine physical characteristics might discontinue as we leave this world. However, the masculine and feminine attributes we develop during our mortal existence follow us the rest of our spiritual careers. This duality, if you permit the term, is an important essence of how the Trinity operates, along with all of creation. Christ Michael was a representative of God as part of the Paradise Michaels, and he was not God themselves, according to the Urantia Book, which is an important differentiation to understand. Consequently, Christ Michael majorly revealed only most of the attributes of the Eternal Son, and perhaps a few attributes of the Universal Father, only signifying the unique flavor of the two who created the Paradise Michaels. In other words, when a couple on Urantia chooses to have a child of their own, usually with each child there are dominant genes that are passed along, with each child being more representative of the gene-dominant parent. Apparently, in divine essence, these characteristics are no different. We learn in 21:1.3 that
some creator sons appear to be more like God the Father, others more like God the Son. For example, the trend of administration in the universe of Nebuchadnezzar suggests that its creator and ruling son is one whose nature and character more resemble that of the eternal mother son.
as we see through the eyes of the many apostles who walked with our motherly Creator Son, please keep in mind that their presence is generally seen being most representative of the Eternal Son, and not necessarily the Universal Father nor the Infinite Spirit. Given the amount of struggles we see as directed by our seventh Master Spirit, along with being executed by our local paradise ruler Christ Michael, I do not see such a tender predisposition of Jesus as being a simple mere coincidence. John, the youngest of the 12 apostles, was 24 years old when he became a follower of Jesus. He hailed from the town of Bethsaida and worked as a fisherman alongside his brother James. and their partners, Andrew and Peter. At the time of his calling, John was unmarried and lived with his parents, which reflects his youth and family-centered life before embarking on his journey with Jesus. John's role in Jesus' life was unique in several ways. He became a trusted figure in the Master's personal affairs, especially regarding the care of Jesus' family. In fact, John's responsibility to Jesus' family continued as long as Mary, the mother of Jesus, was alive. His closeness to Jesus made him one of the most trusted disciples, though it would be a misunderstanding to suggest that he was the disciple who Jesus loved, in a special, exclusive sense. Jesus loved all his disciples equally, and the idea of John being favored is more a result of his proximity and importance in Jesus' life than any favoritism from the Master. John's deep connection to Jesus can also be traced back to the fact that he was one of the earliest followers and remained particularly close to Jesus throughout his ministry. The narrative of John's personal growth through his interactions with Jesus is integral to understanding his character. Despite being a naturally conceited young man, possibly due to his position as the youngest of the apostles and his youthful self-esteem, John underwent significant transformation over the years, especially as witnessed and absorbed Jesus' teachings of love and unselfishness. Jesus' life, characterized by humility, care for others, and a deep devotion to God's will, deeply impacted John. He would later become known as the Apostle of Love, someone who spoke and wrote frequently about love and brotherly devotion, a sentiment that dominated the rest of his life. In his early years, John, along with his brother James, exhibited some less admirable traits, such as a fiery temper and a tendency to be intolerant. One famous instance involved John wanting to call down fire from heaven to punish the disrespectful Samaritans, a characteristic that reflected his impulsive nature. Additionally, when he saw others casting out demons in Jesus' name, he tried to stop them, believing that only those directly chosen by Jesus should have such authority. These moments of arrogance and self-righteousness, however, gradually diminished as John matured and as he became more attuned to Jesus' message of humility and love. Friendly reminder to those of you that are new to the channel that it was not until Christ Michael poured his spirit upon our planet after his crucifixion that the remaining evil entities were apprehended. Over time, John also became better at managing his temper, though he retained a certain degree of reticence and reserved personality for the rest of his life. John's courage and commitment were key to his character. He was the only one of the apostles who followed Jesus during his arrest and was presented at the crucifixion, remaining faithful to his master, even in the face of danger. He was also the disciple who, along with Peter, was one of the first to believe in Jesus' resurrection. When Jesus appeared to the disciples on the shore after his resurrection, it was John who immediately recognized him in his Urantia form, affirming his deep connection and understanding of Jesus. In the early days of the Christian movement, John played a significant role alongside Peter, supporting the fledgling church in Jerusalem. His faith and leadership were particularly evident after the Pentecost, where he became one of the central figures in spreading Jesus' message. Even after the martyrdom of his brother James, John continued to lead and guide the church, eventually marrying his brother's widow and carrying out his family's legacy. As John grew older, his life saw several periods of trial and hardship. He was imprisoned multiple times for his faith and eventually exiled to the island of Patmos in Greece, where he wrote the book of Revelation. This period in exile marked a significant point in John's life, as he recorded a profound and transformative vision, which would later become part of the New Testament, though much of it had been lost or distorted over time. Despite the hardships, John's later years were marked by wisdom and spiritual maturity. He became the bishop of the churches in Asia and spent his final years in Ephesus, where he continued to guide the early Christian communities. John's advanced age did not prevent him from remaining active in his ministry, and he was often carried to the church in a chair when he could no longer walk. In his last years, his message to the believers was simple but powerful.
My little children, love one another.
This message became a cornerstone of his teachings, encapsulating the spirit of his life and faith. John also played a crucial role in the creation of the gospel that bears his name. Even in his late 90s, he worked with his associate, Nathan, to direct the writing of the Gospel of John, making it one of the most theological and reflective of the four Gospels. His influence as a theologian and spiritual leader continued well into his old age. Finally, John lived to the remarkable age of 101 years old and passed away peacefully in Ephesus, located in modern-day Turkey, in AD 103. His life was one of transformation, from a self-assured, impulsive young man to a beloved and wise apostle who exemplified the teachings of Jesus in both word and deed. Through his writings and actions, John left an enduring legacy, shaping the early Christian church and contributing significantly to the theological foundations of Christianity. Philip, the fifth apostle chosen by Jesus, was 27 years old when he joined the group. He had been known to Jesus for some time, since they both came from Bethsaida. But it wasn't until Jesus personally called him that he fully recognized the Master's greatness. Philip had recently married, but had no children at that time. His nickname, given by the other apostles, reflected his tendency towards curiosity and a need for things to be shown to him clearly. While not lacking in intelligence, Philip was known for his lack of imagination and inability to grasp broader ideas, making him more of a matter-of-fact, methodical individual. Philip's main responsibility, along with the apostles, was as a steward, ensuring that they had enough provisions. He performed this role efficiently, with great attention to detail, and was reliable in handling the logistical needs of the group. His strength lay in his systemic and thorough approach to tasks, though he lacked the creativity to see deeper connections in situations or to think outside the box. Raised in a family of 7 children and a fishing family, Philip was second oldest. After Jesus' resurrection, he baptized his entire family into the faith. Though Philip wasn't a natural leader or public speaker, his steady and practical nature made him a reliable figure in the early church. He often attracted people by inviting them to come and see, rather than telling them what to do, which, being a psychotherapist myself, I believe to be the true credo of counseling, as we continuously resist the urge to do the same through Socratic questioning. This simple but effective invitation became his hallmark, as he encouraged others to join him in experiencing Jesus' message, rather than trying to convince them through dogmatic preaching. Philip's inability to adapt to new situations was evident at times. For example, when Greeks came to him asking to see Jesus, he wasn't sure what to do, since no instructions had been given for such encounters with foreigners. So he consulted Andrew for guidance. Similarly, when preaching in Samaria, he did not lay hands on converts as instructed by Jesus, leaving that task to Peter and John, who came from Jerusalem to oversee the work. After the death of Jesus, Philip participated in the reorganization of the apostles and became one of the first to evangelize outside the Jewish community. He was particularly successful in reaching the Samaritans. His wife, who was active in the women's ministry, also supported his evangelistic efforts. And after the prosecution in Jerusalem, they fled together. Philip's wife was a strong and fearless woman who continued the mission even after Philip was crucified. She preached until she was stoned to death for her faith. Philip eventually became a significant missionary, known for his persistence in spreading the gospel. He was crucified for his faith in Hierapolis, Greece, where he was buried. making the end of his earthly journey, but solidifying his legacy as a steadfast servant in Jesus' kingdom. Nathaniel. Nathaniel, also known as Bartholomew, was the sixth and last apostle chosen by Jesus, introduced to him by his friend Philip. Nathaniel was 25 years old when he joined the apostles and lived with his elderly parents in Cana, where he was the youngest of a family of 7. He was unmarried and the primary caregiver for his parents. Nathaniel, along with Judas Iscariot, was among the most educated of the 12 apostles, and he had initially considered becoming a merchant. The apostles quickly recognized Nathaniel's honesty and sincerity, calling him without guile, which reflected his virtuous character. However, Nathaniel's pride was a flaw. He took great pride in his family, his city, and his nation, which sometimes led him towards prejudice of others, as seen when he initially questioned whether anything good could come out of Nazareth. Despite this, he was open-minded and quick to change his opinion after meeting Jesus. Nathaniel was a philosopher and dreamer, but balanced these traits with practicality. He was known for his humor and storytelling, making him a beloved and respected figure among the apostles. Jesus enjoyed Nathaniel's philosophical musings and humor, and Nathaniel's lighthearted nature helped ease tensions within the group, especially when things became strained or uncertain. His primary responsibility as an apostle was to care for the families of the 12, and he often prioritized their welfare, responding quickly to any emergencies or illnesses. Nathaniel's admiration for Jesus was rooted in the Master's tolerance and broad-mindedness, qualities that deeply resonated with him. After the Pentecost, Nathaniel's father passed away, and he began his missionary work in Mesopotamia and India, spreading Jesus' teachings and baptizing believers. Nathaniel's later years were spent in India, where he eventually died, leaving behind a significant legacy and spreading the kingdom's message. Even though he did not play a role in the formal organization of the Christian church. Conclusion. Much like what is lacking in the book of Revelation by John, who was easily among the eldest apostles to survive out of the group, reaching to aberrant old age, it's important to remember that words can never completely or accurately convey the experience of learning from the Master. More broadly, this is also a true statement when making the mistake to indicate that Jesus Christ Michael represented God directly, rather than being more representative of the motherly tenderness of the eternal Son. John, Nathaniel, and Philip were special in their own ways when it came to developing the early church of Jesus Christ, despite a majority of the accounts remaining ambiguous, even with the eyes surrounding the Urantia papers. We learn in 121:8.3 that Christ Michael and his followers refused to write anything down when we read,
Knowing how consistently the Master refused to write out his teachings when on earth and in the flesh, Mark, like the apostles and other leading disciples, was hesitant to put them in writing. But Peter felt the church at Rome required the assistance of such a written narrative, and Mark consented to undertake its preparation. He made many notes before Peter died in AD 67, and in accordance with the outline approved by Peter and for the church at Rome. He began his writing soon after Peter's death. The gospel was completed near the end of AD 68. Mark wrote entirely from his own memory and Peter's memory.
This is a constant reminder of the accuracy and authenticity of some of the most revered texts that we see in the New Testament Bible. As due to aforementioned reasons in previous videos, Christ Michael was not permitted to write anything down once he was in full communion with his divine thought adjuster. After all, Christ Michael came to us to provide truth from his own mouth, along with designated appointees spreading the news, rather than others twisting those words by error or intent to push their own agendas. To enhance this statement, if God truly wanted us to find him through a single religion, trust me when I say he would have made one. All of the necessary tools associated with spiritual survival exist previous to the arrival of our Creator Son, and most certainly has been uplifted by the outpouring of the Spirit of Truth onto our planet. Stay tuned to our next episode on Thomas, Matthew, and the Alphaeus brothers next week. All right, I will see you then.